Good day, Creative Spirit. We're going to start our session today with a hymn from Voices United, 227, For the Fruit of All Creation. How about one more? Again, Voices United, 229, God of the Sparrow. Well, this coming week, we always sort of work, sort of the week ahead of the Sunday coming up, is Thanksgiving, if you can believe it. Yes, we're already into Thanksgiving. So I would like to read to you today something called Gratitude as a Spiritual Practice. And as Creative Spirit is a spiritual practice, gratitude, something that maybe is a little harder to come by these days. And I thought this was a really great time to share this lovely piece And it is from abbeyofthearts.org. I believe it's .org. I'll double check. It's a wonderful reading. So here we go. The 5th century monk and mystic Benedict of Nursia counsels in his rule for monastic life an attitude of contentment among his community. Whatever the circumstances they find themselves in, they are to find some satisfaction with what is in the moment. In a world of self-entitlement and inflated sense of need, learning to be content with what we have has the potential to be quite revolutionary. It means craving less and being more satisfied with what one has. One way to encourage this posture of contentment in our lives is gratitude. Gratitude is a way of being in the world that does not assume we are owed anything. And the fact that we have something at all, whether our lives, our breath, families, friends, shelter, laughter, or other simple pleasures, are all causes for celebration. We can cultivate a way of being in the world that treats all these things as gifts, knowing none of us deserves particular graces. We might begin each day simply with an expression of gratitude for the most basic of gifts, life itself. Awakening each morning for another day to live and love, grateful for our breath and a body that allows us to move through our day. Then we can offer gratitude for a home and all the things that are important to us about this place of shelter. Environmental activist and author Joanna Macy describes gratitude as a revolutionary act because it counters the thrust of the industrial growth society or the consumer society, which breeds dissatisfaction. You have to make people dissatisfied with what they have and who they are in order to keep them buying. Gratitude is a way for us to cultivate a healthy asceticism and reject consumerism. Gratitude is a practice that can begin with the smallest acknowledgement and be expanded out to every facet of our existence. A simple way to nurture this awareness in our lives is to end each day with a gratitude list. You might write 5 to 10 things for which you feel grateful each day, lifting up both the large and small moments of grace. It is a way to end the day by honoring the gifts we have received rather than dwelling on where life came up short for us. Consider saving these grateful noticings together somewhere, and after a season of time, reading back over the things that made your heart expand, and notice what patterns you find there. Gratitude has a way of transforming our approach to life into one that is more open-hearted, generous, and joyful. Rather than moving through our day feeling cynical or burdened, we can consciously choose our thoughts. This doesn't mean that we have to offer gratitude for injustices or abuse. We are always called to resist those. But it does mean we might be able to tap into greater joy, to replenish us for those moments when we do need to fight for dignity and kindness. Gratitude overflows into joy and makes us feel connected to something bigger than ourselves. So I'd like to, in our prayer today, I'm going to be reading We Make the Road by Walking by Brian McLaren. And it is the prayer of thanksgiving that's been adapted from the Book of Common Prayer. And there is a responsive section to this. So I'd like you to respond with, "We thank you, living God." Let us pray. Let us give thanks to the living God for all the gifts that we enjoy, saying, "We thank you, living God." For the beauty and wonder of your creation in earth and sky and sea, we thank you, living God. For all that is gracious in the lives of men and women, revealing the image of Christ, We thank you, living God, for our daily food and drink, our homes and families, and our friends. We thank you, living God, for minds to think and hearts to love and hands to serve. We thank you, living God, for health and strength to work and leisure to rest and play. We thank you, living God, for challenges that call forth new strength, for failures that teach greater humility, and for encouragement to persevere when life is hard. Oh, we thank you, living God, for all who have gone before us, for all who walk beside us, and for all children who are precious to us and to you. We thank you, living God, and for the great wisdom and hope that you reveal to us through Jesus, our leader, example, teacher, liberator, and friend. We thank you, living God. Amen. All right, so now our time of creativity. You will need today a couple things. You're going to need, of course, a sheet of watercolor paper. Actually, I take that back, 2 sheets, 2 full sheets, or you may decide that 1 full sheet and 1 half sheet might do it for you as well. Have 2 on hand. Some painters, the green painter's tape, of course, your paintbrush, your round. You might even want now I don't have a flat on me, but so I'm using an angle, but a flat wash brush, just to add paper to, or water to the paper, because that's going to be an important part of today, is making sure that your paper is wet for one of them. And an old toothbrush. Yes, an old toothbrush. So check underneath your kitchen sink, because that's often where we find old toothbrushes, or at the bottom of the bathroom cupboard for cleaning grout. So yes, an old toothbrush. Your paint palette, of course, and some water. And then the other main components to this that you are going to absolutely need are leaves. And these do not necessarily have to be, you're not looking for the colored leaves or the most beautiful leaf that you can find. In a lot of cases, the green leaves actually are going to work better. If you can find leaves that have fallen, great. If they are pliable, that's even better, okay? The green leaves are going to, and that's why I say the green, because if they get crunchy, like this, and though this might work for you, but once they start to get dry and the sides start to curl up, if you can see that, that's not going to work as well for you for this particular project. So leaves, and well, let's just get to it, shall we? All right, I'm going to just set those aside. So you can see here some of the examples of, so we're doing 2 different things here with watercolor and leaves today. And the first thing that we're going to do is this, and it is creating prints in your watercolor through laying the leaves on there, having the underside. So the side that has the more obvious vein, right? The back of the leaf has the veins of the leaves, that the texture. You can really see and feel those veins. That's the side you're going to want to lay down in this particular exercise. And it creates a very interesting piece all on its own, or possibly once you're done it speaks to you beyond that as a background for something. And so you could go ahead and perhaps do wording on top of it, you know, gratitude, or perhaps you've got a Thanksgiving card that you would like to send. Then you could easily turn this into a card, right? Just fold it in half and send it off with love and grace. So it may spur you on to something else. So that's what we're going to start with. So I'm just going to show you on a half sheet for starters. We're going to take some clean water, and I'm taking my larger brush, and this really, there is no rhyme or reason to this. In some cases you can go all the way to the edge, and you know what I should have done, because that is just who I am. I'm just going to tape down the corners. I'm not going to create a border, but you can already see what's happening with some of this paper, right? It likes to curl up as soon as it gets wet. And that's probably because this sheet is a bit on the thicker, heavier, the heavier your watercolor paper, the less that happens. So that'll just, I'll just randomly add. It doesn't have to go all the way to the edge of the paper. It can have loose or wild edges, that's fine too. And then it's just a case, much like we did in our very first week of Creative Spirit, we're just going to sort of add color. We're just going to drop that color in. Just going to drop it into places. And I'll show you, I'll lift this up in a moment. Let me just add, and pick whatever colors you would like, whatever colors speak to you and you think that go nicely together. Again, if you're on the color wheel, you know, try not, in this particular case, because the water is all over the whole piece, you may find that if you mix colors that are of the cool side and of the warm side, that you're going to get muddy if the colors run in together. And hey, that's okay too, if that's the look you're going for. And it looks like some of my paper now has started to dry out a bit, so I'm just going to add some more water, help these things move along. Right, having different gradients of light and dark and where the color is going. And you can fill the whole sheet. I'm going to just quickly lift this up for you. You could fill the whole sheet if you wanted. Look, there it goes running. And, you know, you could let it run, actually, if you wanted to see what really happens like that. Just let the colors really mix. And then, let's just tag that back down for a second. And then it's just a case of laying the leaves in. So like I say, the vein side you want down, and then you're just going to lay them in. And it doesn't have to be so that the whole leaf is in, but you are going to want to just make sure that as much of the leaf is tacked down. Because like I say, some of these other leaves, I'm still going to give it a try, but you might find that it lifts up, right? And then it's just, yeah, that one's going to lift up. So maybe I'll just hold it there for a moment and see what happens, see what I can get out of it. You don't even have, and you know what, you can use any kind of leaf, large leaves, small leaves, just add them in there. The stems, you can leave the stems on, or you can take the stems off. And if you're finding that they're not sticking, it may be a case of needing more water. So just go ahead and drop a little more water down, and then drop your, that's like a little, it's like a little leafy there, weed actually, I think. Just your average roadside weed. And those might be too dry to stick, but give it a shot. And so then once you have your leaves in place, now is the tricky part. And I say this because you're going to want to mess with it, and you really can't. You have to you got to let it dry, okay? You have to let that sit and dry on your own. So once it's dry, okay, you'll notice the leaves have stuck to it. So then once it's dry, now these leaves, they did start to, and because of the paper was curling and I didn't have this particular one taped down, that also makes a difference. But you'll see how the leaves sort of have started to, I don't know if you can see that, have started to sort of pull away. So we're just going to pull these leaves off. And in some cases, I mean, it kind of leaves it with a really interesting sort of texture where some of the leaves have stuck and some of the places, ooh, that was a good one. Ooh, yes, the oohs and the ahs from the crowd. Oh, that's cool too. Oh, fabulous. And you may find, you know, like I say, if you do two halves, then that way you can sort of you know, try whether you use like the purples and the blues and the cooler greens that way, or whether you stick with the reds and the oranges. You may find that you like how the purple, the darker colors actually are a little more vibrant. This is about playing, but isn't that fun? Okay. Then the next piece I'll show you is the split. Oh, yes, right. So when I was talking about the drying, sorry, I must say this. Best just to leave it dry overnight. Oh, I know that can be a tough one. But really leave it dry overnight, because then you're guaranteed that once it's good and dry, like those leaves that I had, you know, stuck down, that they're really going to make their impression. And again, it could be partly that you don't want it to fully make an impression, so that partway through its drying process, you're going to want to remove them. And then if you have plans for something to do this, use it as a background for something else, by all means then. The next one is the splatter. And yeah, so don't wear your best clothes for this. And this one I'm going to say was a bit of a learning lesson. Here's one that had been done in the past, and we had some metallics. I don't know if you can see, sort of there's a shimmer to it. But this should have had darker colors, I think, starting in the background for the first time. A little too light, and I didn't do enough layers to really give the obvious the layered leaf effect. Though you can still see it, I think you're going to be better off going with a little more depth to the color. So let's go ahead and try that. Now this, you can, again, I would use, this is good and fun, and splatter's fun, so go ahead and use a full sheet, right, into the splatter. But for today's purposes, and this also I like personally, I just happen to like it with the border on it. Okay, so go ahead and tape a border, and by doing so, you're just taking your green painter's tape and literally go ahead and tape it right down to your surface, and tape it over the edge, right? I wouldn't try and tape, it's more difficult. I find that if you try and lay the tape and line it up with the top edge, that becomes more difficult. Keep the tape partly on the table as well, and just tape it down. And then you can get your paints, and they may have to be a little bit on the watery side, but that's okay. And as a side note, if you're just happening to join us for the first time and you don't have watercolor paint, this happens to be a great creative project to do with coffee. Yes, so if you've got coffee at home, instant coffee, or just really good brewed, a leftover pot that you just want to like boil up a little bit just to make it good and dark, this is a great one for coffee, because you can just splatter the coffee, and as it layers, it will create those depths as well. So like I say, if you don't have the watercolor, fear not. Coffee will work. All right, so the first thing to do is lay down some leaves on your paper. And again, the flatter, the better, so the greener stuff. And the one thing that, if you've got sort of, things that have like little buds and stuff, you can still do those, or little wispy grasses. That still works really well on this technique as well. Whatever you want, however you might want your picture, your piece to look, thinking that there's a leaf that you want in the foreground to be more obvious. That's the first thing that has to go down. So your foreground has to go down first. Okay, I know it sounds a little weird. And don't worry, in this particular case, don't worry about whether the leaf is, front down or back down. That's fine. It's just whatever shape leaf you want in the foreground of your picture, that needs to go down first. So I'm going to put the little smaller guys down first. Little ones. And again, these are just little in your garden room type of weeds that we're constantly trying to pull out. And then some other little leaves. And the neat thing about this is go ahead and actually lay some leaves over top of one another, right? So if you're putting down, you love the shape of, you know, a leaf like this, then go ahead and do that. But then also maybe overlap part of the leaf here as well, and then that will give you a layered, you'll have this portion of the leaf sort of looking like it's in the background, whereas then this leaf will eventually come to the foreground. So let's see. Let's see if I'm gonna get this, how this is gonna, and then I'm going to put a much larger leaf right across the front, or almost sort of across the front. Okay. So you will want two sheets because you're gonna want to do this. You're probably gonna want to do this again because you're thinking, I'm not sure where I want everything. Clearly, I'm not sure where I want everything. All right, now we're going to, now that you've got everything laid down, here comes the fun stuff. Put your toothbrush in some water. I'm gonna start with maybe some red. So I'm just going to get my toothbrush and the paint, right? Tap off a little extra. And like I say, this might get everywhere. So you're gonna wanna make sure that you have either your surface covered or that it is a wipeable surface, as are your clothes. They need to be able to be wipeable. And if it drips, don't worry. So you're just gonna take your finger, and if you don't wanna get your fingers dirty, then you can always use like maybe part of an old comb or part of a screwdriver, anything else like even a chopstick kind of thing to run across instead of your finger. But I am just running my finger along that and letting the splatters just happen. And it's okay that the leaves are on the edges are lifted up a bit. Don't worry about that. Okay. Yeah, I just stuck that in my clean water. Right. And then, maybe just before I lift it up, now I'm going to just put it in some yellow. Not a lot of yellow right now, just a little bit. And it doesn't, have to go, like wherever you've got the colors, you can do maybe only in one spot, like right up at the top, you want some more yellow. And because this is the background, we're just gonna make sure some of the points have a little more spray to it. Okay, and then I'm going to lift up that leaf. And now I'm going to continue on. And let's see, now what am I gonna color? Let's go with maybe some orange. Get my brush on orange there. And then re-splatter. And I know that I've said in the past that the lighter colors should always go on first, and I'm not sure in this project that is necessarily the case. And I'm thinking already that I should have done the purple, but that's okay. That's part of what we do here with the experimentation. That creative spirit, right? There is no wrong. All right, so this is going to be good and dark now. And you can just go ahead and keep layering. And yes, some of them may move on you as you're doing this, and that's okay too. And then actually I'm just going to use my brush here because these little ones are hard to get up. Like that. And then, what other color? I've got got sort of a brownish, reddish kind of thing going on here. Maybe a little of that. And play with it, right? This is about, again, creating. It's having fun. And so, when you are done, you get this layered effect with the leaves. Now, like I say, if you end up having a situation where you've got big blobs, wet, drippy blobs, that's where some of this came out of. The big drippy blobs, I'm like, well, not sure that I quite like the blob. And you could just take either the end of a paintbrush or the toothbrush, and take the toothbrush, and I'll just show you real quick. You could just take the toothbrush and do some little, here, let's put it up here. Take the toothbrush, doesn't have to be super wet, and just do some fun little, you know, they're like little explosions of life. Oops. Some of that purple. Probably if I turned it around, that would help, and then I can always sort of flick it towards me. Right? It's abstract. It's fun. It's exploring. It's seeing it's seeing about the possibilities. And there you have it. It's super simple, but it's fun. And that is a huge part of being able to do what we do here, is that it is enjoyment. Because when you truly enjoy something like that, right, you do find your sense of calm. So as Thanksgiving is coming up, maybe this is something that you might, if you're planning now, depending on what kind of restrictions we have going on here in the province of Ontario this coming week for COVID-19. If you've got your bubble coming over for dinner, maybe you want to do like little place cards, and you could do that kind of thing. Or maybe you just want to do a couple and have them sitting up and enjoy the fact that it is Thanksgiving, and we truly have so much to be thankful for. So let's get refocused, let's recenter, and get your feet flat on the floor and backs up straight. And we are going to breathe in, and on our breathing in, you're going to breathe in the gratitude for our being. Oh, breathing in that gratitude, and that gratitude turning into joy on the way out, and sending that joy back into the world. So breathing in the gratitude, sending joy out into the world. And one more time. Oh, breathing in that gratitude and sending the joy back out into the world. And together we say our creative spirit prayer. Creator God, quiet my mind before it passes judgment on this prayer, my gift of time to you. Amen. And so as you create, may you find calm in your creating, and may you be restored and discover your aliveness. Have a fabulous week, and we'll see you soon.